Hey Tekken players, hope you're all doing well. So for this video I'm going to explain how to land King's counter hit down forward 2 combo. I'm going to explain why it's so good, why you really need to learn it as a King main, and I'm going to talk about the different combos you can do, basically going through the easiest down to the hardest. So as I mentioned, why is this so good? Okay, so King's down forward 2, it's a 13 frame mid, so that means you can't duck it, and 13 frames is basically up there with the fastest mids in the game, so it comes out really quick. And it's important to note that you have to land it on counter hit, but if you can get the counter hit you get this knockdown. So on counter hit you get this. Okay, so that can't be avoided, that second hit and that knockdown. Note, if it's not counter hit, watch this, it can be ducked. That's regardless whether it's hit or blocked. So that's why we want it to land on counter hit, and why we need to learn how to basically confirm that it's counter hit and then get the combo afterwards. It is worth mentioning that for this sort of technique we are talking fairly high level in terms of your opponent has to know that they can still duck this and have that in their muscle memory. So if you're in the lower ranks, or if you're playing against someone who's like super mashy, they're just pressing all the time, you can probably just let this rock and it'll either be blocked and it's still safe, so you're not punished, or you may get lucky because they were mashing so you scored a counter hit. So we're talking sort of a higher level of play here, so again just bear that in mind. Okay, so I've sort of mentioned why it's so good. Basically counter hit launchers in Tekken 8 are kind of a thing of they're just not really there anymore compared to Tekken 7. In Tekken 7 used to have sort of, you know, really fast highs and mid that would counter hit, and in Tekken 8 they nerfed all of them. So Kings, for example, used to be able to counter hit just back one by itself, which was awesome, and that's now gone. So the fact that King still has this counter hit launching mid that's 13 frames fast, it really, to be honest, shouldn't be in Tekken 8. And as sad as it will be, I suspect one day it will go, because as I said, it's sort of against the ethos, but at the moment it's still there, so you really need to learn to abuse it and use it while it is still there. So having sort of explained why it's so good, I'll just kind of let's talk it through. So just in terms of outright sort of damage, if you land a full combo with the blue spark ender, I believe the total damage is 76 or thereabouts, and that's without a wall or anything. So that's pretty damn good, to be honest, even compared to say like a normal hop kick or a full crouch down forward 2 launcher. So again, it's really worth doing. So and again, I should just try to demonstrate what that looks like in all its glory, so apologies if this has a few edits, but we'll see if we can land it. Okay, 76 if you get the blue sparks. If you don't get the blue sparks, it's 74. So pretty good either way. So yeah, so that's the full max damage, not including any kind of environmental factors like floor blasts, walls, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the first, and to be honest, probably the hardest bit, which is how do we counter hit confirm this? Note that this can be delayed, the second hit, and that's important because that delay in theory gives you enough time to confirm was it a counter hit or not. By the way, I suspect if they're going to change it, that's what they'll change. They'll make it whereby you can't delay this, so you'll have to just, a bit like back 1-2, you'll just have to kind of mash and assume you've landed it. So that, anyway, that's by the by. At the moment you can delay the second hit, and that gives you enough time to confirm the counter hit. So the obvious question is, okay, so how do we know whether we scored a counter hit? Now if you're playing a normal match, this is actually easier because obviously the dummy is fighting back, and you can have certain cues to know if they hit when you were pressing buttons. So can you physically see them moving? Did they make a noise? You know, because obviously when you enter a command, you normally make some sort of noise associated with it. So in match it is easier, but let's assume for the sake of argument that we're doing with no visual cues whatsoever apart from what we can go by on our own. And the way you do this is you set the I'll just show you just where it counter hits every time. So let's change this to player counter, and we'll just do counter hit. Note, when it counter hits, you'll notice the hit spark is purple and it's slightly bigger. If you watch, compare that to not set. See, you don't get that purple spark, you just get a yellow spark. Whereas if it's counter hit, you can see the purple. Tiny Q, but that's how you confirm that was definitely counter hit if you've got nothing else to go by. So the way to practice this is basically do what I've got set up here, which is have the dummy after hit or block goes to crouching. So that means that if you haven't landed the counter, they'll be able to duck. And then set the counter hit properties to shuffle. Now, what we do is we first of all just try to spot. That was counter hit. See, that wasn't. That was. That was. That was. That was. That wasn't. So you're just looking at the moment just to see can you distinguish the hit sparks. And the second and much harder thing is now, can you, if you definitely saw a counter hit, follow it up with the down forward 1, and if it wasn't a counter hit, touch nothing. So basically the way this game works is if the dummy has ducked you, you've lost. And then basically you just practice that. So I have a really quick go. I haven't warmed up or anything. I'm just showing you roughly kind of what this looks like. So let's try. Okay, so that means I lost. I would have been launched for that. Okay, that was counter hit and I didn't press. So this is hard, like I said, and I won't give you too much demo. I'm just showing you what you want to do to practice this. Okay. No. Okay. See? Okay, so this is hard, but like I say, if you just keep practicing long enough. Okay, that was counter hit and I didn't let go. Okay, so that just gives you a rough idea of basically how to play that game. And like I said, that is the hardest way of doing it. And in a real match, you probably won't have to do that because you'll have other cues. And usually you'll do this kind of like in anticipation. So say for example, you might do a move that is that's fairly plus on block. So I don't want him. I want the dummy to. There you go. So for example, this is I believe it's +3. So that's kind of like a nice frame trap. Again, a bit of a legacy one this, but if you do this. Ah, he did duck. That's a good point. Stop ducking me. Okay, that's really plus. So that's kind of thing which you could do that, then fish for it. So you can do the setup, then go fishing. But that's basically how you sort of do the hardest bit, which is trying to confirm the counter hit, and just practice that. Okay, so that is step 1 and the hardest bit. So let's talk about what combos you can get afterwards. Now, the one I'm not going to mention, I'm not going to talk about how to get the pickup for female characters, which also includes Leroy for some reason that I don't understand, and Leo. So you can pick them up with a micro dash. However, I've practiced a lot and I can't do it, and call me old-fashioned, but if I can't do something and I can't understand how to do it, then I don't think I should be trying to teach it. However, go over to Armor King TV's YouTube channel, which I'll drop a link to. He gives an explanation how you do it, but in effect you have to micro dash after it lands. So you basically have to do this. Hang on, let's get this guy to stop blocking. Micro dash and then pick up like that, but it's really, I find it ridiculously hard. So what I would go for online especially is I would just do this, follow it with people's elbow into alley kick, and if you do that quick enough, that's all guaranteed. So that's one thing you can do. Alternatively, you can do a mini combo with alley kicks like that. So I would use that for female characters unless you really want to go into the depths to learn the really hard stuff. Okay, so that's one. Now for normal males, you don't have to do any micro dash. You can just pick this up with your standard down forward down forward 4-3 like that, and it will just work. That's your pickup, and then it's always back 1-2 for the screw. Now you'll notice that we're ridiculously off axis, so the second hardest part of the combo after you've done the confirming the counter hit is the finisher. But luckily there are some easy sort of cheat guides to get some damage. So the easiest one to do is to do the ender as a deadly boomerang, which is sidestep 3+4. This, and you'll notice that because his range is so big, it'll always hit. So I'll just show it this looks like. Okay, so that gives you 67. So that's a fairly chunky combo. However, you'll note that it completely resets neutral because we're really far apart from each other. So you have no Oki follow-up. It will not affect, you won't get any stage hazards or, so you can't do any wall travel, it won't break the floor, etc, etc. However, if your execution is not on point and you just want the damage, you just want to guarantee the damage, which is, let's be honest, it's sometimes better just get the guaranteed damage and try to be flashy and fail, go for that combo. Or if they haven't got enough health to survive and you'll just kill him anyway. So that's your sort of your baby first step. So I'll just show that again. And as I mentioned, the great thing is that will always hit. It doesn't matter how off axis you are, it just works. Okay, so that's step number one. But let's now up our game, because the reason why we ideally want to end with the I can actually land it. The reason why you want to end with the running power bomb is a couple of reasons. Number one, because the Oki is really good, and the second reason is because if there's any kind of if there's a floor hazard, or as in the floor is exploded, or if it's on a if it breaks, then you'll get extra damage and extra combo routes on that. So that's the main reason. But as I said, to be honest, it's the Oki that's really good. In case you don't know, after that running power bomb, if you do either a down forward 4 like this or forward 4, that catches so many Oki options, including if they flinch, if they try to get up, they try to quick stand. The only thing that sort of doesn't work against this or this is basically if you stay absolutely still. And if they stay absolutely still, you can start messing them with ground throws. I won't do this, he's on the floor. Yeah, so you can start getting them with ground throws, So it's really the Oki is kind of what we're after. Now there is an easier way of doing this, which is basically if you haven't used heat, you can make use of the fact that you've got the heat burst for your extra spike. So that looks something like this. Okay, so that does slightly less damage, but but that is easier to do, because if your instant shining wizards aren't quite on point, that's an easier step. So let's talk about how we get to that position, because as I mentioned, we are super off axis. Okay, so let's talk about how we do that. Now you can use the status setting to record it into the stasis to practice the final part. I don't like to do that personally, because number one, I find it weird to I find I haven't got enough time, I feel rushed. And secondly, because to be honest, I'd like to practice all this part. So even though it takes me more time to do all that, and I could just save it there in the post bound, I prefer just to do it manually, because it gives me more practice. But what you have to do basically is post screw. Oops. And you've got to make sure you get this the right way round. So what you need to do is you need to do a dash in like that, and then a deep side step to the right like this. So again, if you're on P1, you're stepping into the foreground, if you're on P2, step into the background. And it's important you get it that order. So dash first, then sidestep. I used to try to sidestep dash and it won't work. And the other thing you just need to bear in mind is if you're going for the 2 jab, which is the one to go for ideally because it gives more damage. If you hit the 2 too fast after a sidestep, you'll get this sidestep 2, because that is a move the king has, sidestep 2. So you want to make sure you've stepped. It is quite hard to do. You sort of like, it's a bit hard to do when I'm sort of doing it normal. But anyway, you need to make sure that you've cancelled it. You've cancelled your step into 2. And then going for the heat burst, you basically press 2, keep 2 held down, and then press 3. And that's just an easy way of getting, that's an easy way of getting the heat burst to come out rather than having to, press 2, then 2 plus 3 separately. Just press 2, hold it down, press 3. Okay, and hopefully when you put it all together, it looks like this. And just Shining Wizard like that. So that's all pretty straight. So again, that's useful to do if your instant Shining Wizards aren't really on point. If you can't do them sort of point blank like that, then that's an easy way around. And if you do that, you'll still get all the benefits of, as I mentioned before, you'll break the floor, you'll explode the floor, and you'll get the good Oki. It's just that because of the heat scaling, you won't do as much damage, and obviously it does force you to use heat. So when you've done that, when you practice, the final one is basically to do the full combo, which is exactly as we mentioned, except we do 2 into instant Shining Wizard like that. My advice is don't rush it. You can actually leave quite a long gap between that and then, no, I can do it now, and then doing the Shining Wizard, longer than you think. Whereas if you try to mash it too much, you'll get this, you see, because you haven't let the previous move recover. But that's sort of a timing thing. So again, if we practice it, we should hopefully be like this. That was me rushing it, by the way. Okay, no blue sparks, but note how long I left it there and I was still able to land it. So that's really good. And then basically you just practice. So there's your kind of like your sort of your 3 levels. There's the easy mode, finish with this. There's the slightly trickier into this. And then there's the big boy version, which is the 2 into Shining Wizard. Also worth noting, and this is a personal preference, I sort of mentioned it before, but if you don't want to use a 2 jab, you can use the 1 jab, which, as I say, the 1 jab recovery is a bit quicker, so you might find that then easier to kind of do the next part of the combo, but you'll do less damage. I'll see if I can land it. I probably can't, to be honest, because I'm so used to doing it with 2. Yeah, so I just haven't got the timing of it because it's been so long since I've used 1. But you can, but anyway, some people might find it easier. Like I said, for me, I've got it in muscle memory to use 2, so I can't really do it. So that's all good. So the only other thing to mention is just if we wanted to perhaps try to get a bit of wall carry, there are certain situations where doing a while standing 2-2 or something similar might get you to the wall. So just give me a moment, I'm going to reset the stage and we'll see if we can set that up. So just worth mentioning that there are certain very specific situations where if you happen to be close enough to the wall, you can use a kind of like a wall combo ender to to be able to sort of make use of the stage hazard. So this should work. I should have him reset to the right place, but I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so something like that, for example. But as I mentioned, that is very sort of niche, because you'll notice that because of the way the combo works, you sort of go round in a semicircle. So if you're near the wall, then that's not always the way to go. But it's just to point out that can be done. But you'll have to make that up on the fly. I find forward 2-1 to be slightly more reliable. You would think while standing 2-2 would work, but as I'll just demonstrate, it's not very consistent, even when you're right next to the wall. See, you would think that would set it off, but it doesn't. Whereas forward 2-1, that does seem to work pretty well. Just again, while we're here, we'll just try some others just to see what we can do. See, back to 4 doesn't seem to work there. So just go for forward 2-1 if in doubt, and that kind of gives you a chance to use the stage hazard, which is all good to see. And finally, again, just to show you why it is worth trying to do the Shining Wizard Ender if you've got a floor hazard of any description, whether you go for the heat version or the raw version, because you can score the, that little bit extra damage. Just to kind of give you an idea of how much points of damage you can get, I'll just show you the combo. Okay, so that's 89. That wasn't with 2 lots of blue sparks. I'm not sure what you get for 2 lots. Bear with me, let's find out. Okay, so just to confirm there, with the 2 lots of blue sparks you can get 90 off that. So that's pretty darn good from, as I mentioned, a counter hit convertible 13 frame mid. So anyway, I hope that's helped you. As I mentioned, just a final bit of advice in terms of putting this all together is, I would say just be patient. Don't try to rush it. Generally speaking, Tekken 8 is quite lenient with how much time you've got. So for example, when you've spiked someone, this bound, they're up in the air for a really long time, which is why you're able to do stuff like jabs into other moves. So basically just make use of that. Don't rush it. Take the time to make sure you dash and step. Never try to step and dash, because it just won't work. So take your time, step in, dash, hit your 2 or your 1, and then again similar thing, just don't rush it, just go hup, and then just do it like that. So just try not to rush it, and that is really hard to do when you're in the heat of battle, but that's my advice. So anyway, let me know if that's helped you guys. If there's any other kind of specific sort of king like either combo, tech, or high execution stuff that you want me to try and look into, let me know and we'll give it a shout. My execution isn't the best in the world, but the good thing is when I have learned to do something, I can normally explain it fairly well, because it takes me a while to understand things. Therefore, I'm quite good at explaining to other people. Anyway, hope that's helped you guys. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.